Have you ever noticed that when you truly begin to change, the people around you often grow uneasy? They rarely say it outright. Instead, it slips through in the form of little jokes, disguised as harmless advice, or even in that heavy silence when you speak about something deeper than they are ready to hear. Beneath the surface, the reason is disarmingly simple. Your inner evolution threatens their comfort zone, and very few people are willing to confront the complacency they have built their lives upon. Maybe you are experiencing this right now. You think differently, you act differently, and you are beginning to question things you once accepted without hesitation. Suddenly, the air feels heavy with judgment, and the people you thought would understand you seem distant, confused, or even critical. What no one tells you, and what nature seems to know better than we do, is that this is the hidden cost of building a strong mind. Not just any kind of strength, but a raw and authentic force that unsettles others. It makes them uneasy. It exposes, without words, the fragility of those who continue to live on autopilot. Why does this happen? Because a truly independent mind is a direct threat to collective mediocrity. When you dare to think for yourself, to carve your own values, to reject the comfortable illusions that society packages as universal truths, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the system, dangerous to those who prefer conformity, and most of all, dangerous to the outdated version of yourself that clings to safety. This video is not an offering of comfort. It is a challenge. It is not for those who want easy answers or quick reassurances. It is for those who are tired of being imprisoned by their own insecurities, for those standing on the edge of an inner fracture, ready to construct something that cannot be broken, a mind that no one can manipulate, a mind that unsettles precisely because it refuses to bow down. If you are prepared to walk this path, a path that is lonely, demanding, and profoundly transformative, then stay. Because nature will confront you at every step, but in doing so, it will also free you. And once you see with that clarity, you will never think the old way again. Nietzsche was never just a philosopher. He was more like a surgeon of the human soul, someone fearless enough to stare into the abyss of existence and not only confront it, but hurl himself into it. And in that abyss, in the very chaos of the inner world that most people spend their lives avoiding, he uncovered the origin of true strength. For Nietzsche, transformation does not emerge from peace, stability, or order. It emerges from suffering, from collapse, from chaos itself. He once wrote that you must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. This is not a poetic metaphor meant to decorate life with romantic imagery. It is a psychological diagnosis. It means that if you want to forge a mind that cannot be shaken, you must abandon the childish belief that it will happen through comfort, cheap bursts of motivation, or glossy affirmations. Real strength is born when you face suffering head-on without retreat. It begins when you stop begging for an easier life and instead demand of yourself to become stronger. Think back to the moments when you grew the most. Were they the times when everything felt secure and predictable? Or were they the moments when you were shattered, disoriented, and forced to rebuild from the ground up? For Nietzsche, suffering was not a mistake in the design of existence. It was its driving force. He did not romanticize pain. He treated it as a tool, a crucible through which greatness is formed. If you can shift your relationship to suffering, to failure, to loneliness, you begin to shape something rare, something nearly indestructible, an unbreakable spirit. And that is precisely the moment the world grows uncomfortable with you. Because while most people run from chaos, you will learn to walk within it. While others cling desperately to normalcy, you will cultivate greatness. But this transformation demands a ruthless break from everything you were taught about what it means to be strong. Strength is not an artificial smile plastered over despair. It is not the shallow performance of emotional control. True strength is the ability to endure the unbearable and still emerge on the other side, even more formidable. Yet Nietzsche understood that chaos alone was not enough. Without an inner center, without a point of grounding, chaos can consume you. That is why the next step in his philosophy is so radical. It is the moment he declared the death of God and placed the entire weight of existence onto your shoulders. Because when there is no sky left to look up to, the only place left for a universe to be born is within you. If this message resonates with you, make sure to subscribe and stay connected with the channel. Your support means a great deal. When Nietzsche declared that God is dead, he was not celebrating. He was issuing a warning that even today many still fail to grasp. What he killed was not a divine being in itself, but the illusion that there is a higher power orchestrating everything. The illusion that life has a pre-written plan, that suffering is part of a divine script, that some ultimate purpose waits for us at the end to justify the pain. The death of God was the death of every excuse, and that is terrifying. Until then, it was easy to hand responsibility over to something beyond yourself. It was comforting to believe that everything had meaning, that pain would eventually make sense, that salvation was guaranteed. Nietzsche tore that veil apart with merciless clarity. He looked directly at you and said, "You are alone. There is no given meaning. Now, you must create it." This is where the forging of a strong mind truly begins. Most people crumble when faced with the realization that they stand alone before chaos, without guidance, without guarantees, with no one left to blame. But those who confront this abyss without collapsing begin to shape a will that cannot be broken. With the death of God, Nietzsche thrusts you into the chasm of radical freedom. You are not meant to obey commandments. You are meant to create values. You are not meant to conform. You are meant to overcome yourself. This is the birth of ruthless autonomy, and with it comes an unbearable weight. Everything now depends on you. There is no forgiveness. There is no salvation. Either you build yourself or you drown. But here lies the secret. The very freedom that terrifies you is also the greatest source of strength you will ever possess. The moment you understand that no one is coming to save you, something within awakens, a fire that compels you to rise even while bleeding. It forces you to think for yourself, to feel for yourself, to act not because someone else told you it was right, but because you decided it was. In this severing from every crutch of existence, Nietzsche was preparing the ground for something even greater. The arrival of a new way of being, a kind of human who does not live by the rules of the crowd, who needs neither approval nor permission, a creator of values, transcending their own limits, living as the architect of their existence. A human so powerful that their very presence unsettles the weak, because it forces them to confront what they truly are. This figure has a name. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, the Overman. And if you are serious about building a mind so unshakable that no force can break it, then you must understand how to step into this new mode of existence, guided only by the will to power within you. Let us go deeper into this. Nietzsche did not believe in the slow, passive evolution of humanity. He believed in rupture, in radical transformation, in a kind of creative destruction. That is why he conceived the idea of the Übermensch. It was never about a superhero with mystical powers. The Übermensch is a human being who has transcended everything that binds ordinary people: guilt, obedience, herd morality, the need for approval. This figure does not seek permission to exist. He does not bend his identity to the expectations of others. He crafts his own inner law and lives by it, even if that places him against the entire world. His mind is unbreakable precisely because it is not built on external validation. He does not require recognition from the outside to affirm his worth. He is self-sufficient, sustained by his own will to power, that deep drive to shape reality in the image of his own vision. This is the essence. The Übermensch does not adapt passively to the world. He imposes meaning onto it. He does not chase comfort. He seeks greatness. He does not ask, "Is this allowed?" He asks, "Is this worthy of me?" And that shift in perspective changes everything. Because the moment you begin to see yourself as a creator rather than a servant, the way you think, act, and feel is transformed. But here lies the problem. Becoming such a being demands sacrifice. You must kill off the parts of yourself that still crave approval. You must endure the pain of not belonging anywhere. You must shoulder the burden of building an identity from nothing, without guarantees, without applause, without the comfort of an audience cheering you on. Most people cannot bear this. They give up before they begin. They retreat to the safety of ready-made beliefs, doctrines, and rules written by others. The path toward the Übermensch is lonely, and Nietzsche knew this better than anyone. He lived on the margins of society, misunderstood, dismissed as mad, isolated from the very world he was trying to liberate. Yet, in that isolation, he discovered his freedom. And this is the truth you must grasp. The stronger your mind becomes, the further you will drift from the crowd. The higher you rise, the more disruptive you become. The creation of the Übermensch is the most ruthless and transformative process a person can endure, because it requires destroying everything that is not truly yours. Everything imposed upon you by a sick culture, by a society that rewards obedience and punishes authenticity. Only after that destruction does the building begin, and that building does not take place in the noise of the crowd. It unfolds in silence, in withdrawal, in the profound solitude that separates the strong from the weak. That is why, in the next part, we must confront the most overlooked yet most powerful aspect of this journey, the solitude of the strong. Because the truth is, if you wish to become unbreakable, you must learn how to walk alone. And very few are ready for that. The question is, are you? If there is one truth rarely spoken about the path to mental strength, it is this: the stronger you become, the lonelier you will feel. And not because you deliberately choose isolation, but because the world no longer knows what to do with you. Nietzsche was unflinching about this reality. The free spirit, the one who refuses the easy truths, who rejects herd morality, who dares to think for themselves, cannot avoid drifting away from the crowd. That separation is painful, but the pain is necessary, because genuine growth requires space, and you cannot grow while being chained to the expectations of others. Most people live inside an invisible crowd, where every thought is policed, where every action is measured against how others will react. You are accustomed to walking with the group, thinking as the group, and feeling safe because you are surrounded by others. Nietzsche urged the opposite. He drags you out of that comfort and casts you into the desert. In that desert, there is no applause, no praise, no guide. There is only you, your doubts, your wounds, your fears, your constant temptation to give up. That is where the real test begins. Because what do most people do? They run back. They hide behind masks. They pretend not to think, not to feel, not to see. But if you truly want to become someone who cannot be broken, you must remain. You must endure the silence that strips you bare and reveals who you really are. Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the crowd. If you try it, you will often be lonely and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." That is the essence, self-ownership. The rarest and most powerful achievement anyone can attain. Because when you truly own yourself, no one else can control you, no one else dictates your worth, and no one else has the power to drag you down. But that ownership comes with the weight of loneliness. You will lose friends, you will be misunderstood, you will be called arrogant, strange, distant. People will try to pull you back into the mold. They will call you mad, cold, unfeeling. Yet, that is the price of refusing to be domesticated. That is the cost of living without applause. That is the cost of refusing to be a mirror for the needs of others. Here is the harsh truth. If you cannot endure loneliness, you are not ready for freedom. Because every real freedom demands sacrifice. The sacrifice of emotional crutches, of comforting illusions, of convenient relationships. That is why Nietzsche saw solitude not as a punishment, but as a privilege, a battlefield where the true self is finally given space to emerge. And yet, the free spirit, this higher type of being, does not simply walk alone. It begins to see what others cannot. And with that vision comes the second unavoidable consequence: confrontation with the mediocrity of the collective. Because the moment you grow strong, mediocrity senses it, and it reacts. That is where we must go next. The danger of collective mediocrity. For the world does not hunt those who blend in. It hunts those who dare to stand out. Nietzsche did not fear tyrants, dictators, or the obvious oppressors of history. What stirred his deepest philosophical fury was something far more insidious: the corrosive power of collective mediocrity. That invisible system that holds people down, that punishes those who dare to think differently, that rewards obedience and disguises cowardice as virtue. For Nietzsche, true tyranny does not descend from above, it rises from beside you. It comes from the crowd that demands you remain small so that they do not have to grow. And this is exactly what happens the moment you begin to stand out. When your mind becomes sharper, when your spirit grows unyielding, when your very presence begins to unsettle others, you become a problem. Not because you have done something wrong, but because you are doing something rare. You are breaking the mold, and society despises those who break the mold. Collective mediocrity cannot bear the brilliance of individuality, because that brilliance exposes the shadows of ordinary life. It reveals the compromises, the conformity, the quiet surrender that most people carry within them. It holds up a mirror that many would rather not see. And so the collective reacts, not always with open hostility, but with subtle forms of resistance, mockery, judgment, exclusion, the constant pressure to return to the safety of sameness. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a morality constructed by those who, unable to achieve greatness, decided to invert the very structure of values. They turned strength into arrogance, ambition into selfishness, independence into coldness. In doing so, they built a moral system that shields the weak while condemning the strong. But make no mistake, this did not come from compassion. It came from resentment. For the weak do not want to be saved. They want the strong to be destroyed. That is why the moment you begin to free yourself, the attacks come. Sometimes direct, other times subtle. In the glance, the silence, the sarcasm. But the message is always the same. Return to the crowd. You are making us feel small. And you, even without intending to, accomplish this simply by being yourself. Nietzsche recognized that most people live in a state of paralyzed conformity, an existence shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience. Anyone who dares to question this condition is immediately labeled a threat. But do not be deceived. Mediocrity does not attack with open force. It attacks with numbers, with consensus, with the crushing weight of repetition. It will try to make you doubt yourself. It will whisper that you are wrong simply because you refuse to blend in. It will use every social weapon from shame to exclusion, to make you bow your head. And it is precisely here that many abandon the path, unable to bear the burden of being seen as strange, difficult, or arrogant. Yet Nietzsche would give you another name: necessary. Because while the world spins on recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and convenient truths, it is the strong individual who introduces the necessary disruption from which something new can be born. Your difference is the spark of transformation, but it is also the target of resistance. To grow strong, to think freely, to live autonomously, this is nothing less than a declaration of war against collective mediocrity. And like any war, it requires preparation. It requires weapons, not physical ones, but mental and spiritual arms. That is what we must now turn to in this final part. For there is a high price to building a mind so powerful it becomes frightening. But there is also a reward no one will ever be able to take from you. You have made it this far. That alone sets you apart from the majority. Most people would have shut this video off at the very first provocation. They would have fled the moment they felt uncomfortable. They would have clicked away as soon as they realized this was not the kind of content designed to flatter the ego. What you are listening to is a call to action. A call for those willing to abandon the comfort of illusion and face reality with their eyes wide open. Because building a mind so powerful that it unsettles others is not just a choice. It is a renunciation. You will lose. You will lose friendships built on shallow foundations. You will lose opportunities that require your obedience. You will lose the ability to be satisfied with small, hollow comforts. But in return, you gain something priceless: integrity, clarity, presence. You begin to see that most people live in a kind of sleepwalking state, and your clarity is frightening. Your consistency shakes others. Your silence speaks louder than the presence of many. This strength does not come from outside. It is not taught in self-help books. It cannot be purchased with empty affirmations or motivational slogans. It is forged deep within the soul, in the silence of difficult nights, in the choices no one else sees. It is the result of an inner war between who you were and who you are becoming. And this war never truly ends, because those who are truly strong are not the ones who have won. They are the ones who continue to fight, even when they no longer have to. Nietzsche never wanted followers. He wanted to trigger earthquakes within the soul. He wanted you to stop crawling for approval, to stop begging for meaning, to stop searching in prepackaged systems for what can only be built through blood, sweat, and consciousness. He wanted you to become dangerous, not in the sense of violence, but in the sense of rarity. So rare that your very existence forces others to look into the mirror and confront what they have been avoiding. And now I want to invite you to do something that will solidify this process. Write in the comments one truth you are tired of hiding, one opinion you have been afraid to voice, one thought that makes you feel isolated, but that represents who you truly are. This is part of the journey. Declare your voice, claim your presence, and above all, declare that you will not bow again. And if this video has reached you, if something within you has been stirred awake, do not stop here. The next video is just as important as this one, perhaps even more. It continues the journey. And if you have come this far, you already know you are not watching out of curiosity. You are here because something inside you has already begun to change. So, keep going. You are not alone. You are simply ahead. And that, my friend, is terrifying, but it is also liberating.